Hello! In this video, we will discuss with you how we can create drop-down lists based on our Google Sheet through data validation. First of all, what are drop-down lists for? Drop-down lists, first of all, help you to validate the data, to select only those categories that you need in a certain column, and also simplify your work with data entry much more, because you don't have to enter it manually every time through text. You can set some characteristics, write out a list of categories, and after that, respectively, they will appear in your sample every time. And so you will not make a lot of mistakes that you could make when entering data manually and, accordingly, simplify your life. In this tutorial, we are going to look at two variations of drop-down lists that we have in our Google Sheets. These are when we customize the drop-down list from within the rule itself, and when we customize the drop-down list with a reference to a data range that is already in your table. Let's take a look at how we can implement this. In order to create a data validation, you need to select the range it will apply to and then go to the data validation section. Next, we add the rules. And we have a dialog box that opens up where we can start entering our sampling value ourselves. Once we've made our selections, we can also still use additional options. What do we have here? We have the option to show text if a validation rule is violated. In this case, you can choose one of the data validation options. Either refuse to enter the data if it doesn't meet one of the criteria in the list, or show a warning. How it works. We've selected two values and we start contributing data that are different. And in the first case, on the data ban, it immediately shows you a notification that you can't contribute those values and deletes them. In the second case, you can contribute data, but it will prompt you that you have to make changes because it doesn't meet the validation rules, therefore it's not on your list. In work, the most common choice is to reject the input, because in this case, if you have some categories, or for example, a limited number of currencies that you want to add to the list or whatever, it helps to avoid the possibility that people might put in some different values that may not be present specifically in that column. Precisely, that's exactly what you can do with data rejection. Next, we're going to move with you to the style of what drop-down lists can look like. They can be as a chip, as an arrow, and as plain text. Plain text is used the least often, as we are more interested in drop-down lists. In this case, what is the main difference between a chip and an arrow? In a chip, we have the ability to select several options. For example, if you have some order and you need to specify several items or categories at once, then it is best to use this option so that we can immediately specify several options in one cell. And if you need to choose only one value from the list, for example, as only one currency we can have for one transaction. In this case, I recommend that you do not set multi-selection. Leave it as it is, and then you can choose whether it will be a chip or an arrow depending on the visual you like, because in everything else they are the same, except for the possibility of multi-selection. Let's leave the chip and talk about the fact that we can also set the color indications of our category within the rule itself. Let's now see how to create a list of the second variant, when we need to make, for example, a reference to one of our ranges with an already ready list of data. We can do this also through data validation, accordingly. In our window, we add another rule and choose not just drop down, but drop down with a range. After that, we have all the same functions here as in the first case. We can also change the color indication here, for example. But what is the key difference between these two lists? If you, for example, want to constantly update the lists and you want to store the bases of these lists on a separate page inside your table, then it is better to use the second option, because it automatically transfers your data and updates it, removes or adds values to your list. For example, if we remove this value now, it will be removed from our list. Here, in this case, in this rule, in order to edit it, we need to go to the check itself and add another value here. If you have values that will change and you would like to see this list and store it in one place, then it is better to use the second option. When you enter additional data, it will be automatically displayed in your list. That's all for today. Give it a like if you enjoyed the video. If you still have any questions, ask them in the comments.